My name is Bailey Harrington. I'm 24 now. If I had to pick the exact second I realized my own mother never truly saw me as her daughter, it wasn't the years of eye rolls or the forgotten birthdays. It was the night of my first real job celebration dinner in downtown Denver. My stepfather Gary slid a shiny gift box across the table with that tight smile he always wears. Inside was a cheap coffee mug that read, "Participation Award," and a handwritten card. "Hope you don't mess this up." My mom, Christine, actually laughed out loud and said everyone thought you'd quit anyway. The whole table cracked up. I stood up, raised my glass, looked them dead in the eye, and said, "Here's to the people who always doubted me. I no longer need to prove anything." Then I set the glass down, calm as ever, placed something small inside the empty gift box, pushed it back to the center of the table, and walked out. The room went completely silent behind me. If you want to know what was in that box and what happened when they finally opened it, stay until the end because the fallout was insane. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Let's get into it. Everything started long before I was old enough to understand what was happening. My real dad died in a car wreck 2 months before my 6th birthday. One day he was there teaching me how to ride a bike in the driveway the next day. The house in Aurora was silent except for Mom crying in her bedroom. She mourned for a while then, when I was 9, she brought home Gary Donovan, a divorced car dealership sales manager with 2 kids already in tow. Chase Donovan, who was 11 then, and Kendall Donovan, 8. 4 months after the quick courthouse wedding, they all moved in, and just like that, my entire world flipped upside down. Within a week, Chase and Kendall claimed the 2 big bedrooms upstairs with the slanted ceilings I had always wanted. I got moved to the unfinished basement that still smelled like concrete and old paint. Mom said it made sense because they were older and needed privacy for homework, even though I was the one having nightmares every night about sirens and twisted metal. Gary never yelled, he never had to. He just used that calm, polite voice that somehow made everything sound final. When I came home with my first perfect report card in 4th grade, he glanced at it and said, "Nice job, Bailey. Chase pulled the same grades last year and still had time for baseball." Mom smiled like he had just paid me the highest compliment. Money turned into the clearest way to keep score. Chase got handed the keys to a brand new Mustang the day he turned 16, 0 down, fully paid. Kendall got unlimited trips to Cherry Creek and never heard the word no. When I was 12 and needed braces because my teeth were starting to crowd, Mom sat me down and explained that Gary's child support payments for his own kids had just gone up, so orthodontics would have to wait. 4 years later, I finally got them fixed with the money I earned myself. My clothes came from Goodwill racks while the living room couch got reupholstered for the 3rd time. Every time I asked for anything extra, Mom sighed and reminded me we were all making sacrifices, and I should be grateful for what I had. The sacrifices always seemed to include new gaming systems for Chase and designer purses for Kendall, but never anything with my name on it. High school drew the lines even deeper. Chase was the star quarterback everyone loved. Kendall was the homecoming princess, and I became the invisible one who just got good grades and stayed quiet. Teachers kept telling me I had college potential, coaches begged me to join every team. But when I brought home medals or certificates, Gary would nod once and immediately ask Kendall how many likes her latest post got. Mom started introducing me to her friends as Bailey. My husband's stepdaughter, like the word daughter, didn't quite fit anymore. Family pictures on the hallway wall slowly changed. The old ones of just Mom and me got replaced with new ones, where I stood half a step behind everyone else, sometimes cropped out completely. By the time I was 16, I had accepted it as normal. I stopped expecting birthday acknowledgments that weren't generic cards picked up at the gas station, stopped asking for rides when it snowed 6 inches overnight, stopped inviting friends over because the house always belonged to Chase and Kendall's schedules first. I buried myself in books, picked up every shift I could at the movie theater and the coffee shop, and started a secret savings account no one knew about. Mom once told me point blank that Gary's retirement fund came before any college contributions for me, because you're smart, you'll find a way. She said it proudly, like it was proof of how strong I was. Those years taught me lessons no classroom ever could. I learned how to stretch $5 until next payday, how to smile when something inside was breaking, how to listen to my own mother choose other people's children over me again and again without ever looking back. By 17, I had a full-ride scholarship locked for CU Boulder, 3 part-time jobs, and a countdown calendar on my phone, marking the days until I could leave that basement for good. I never wasted energy being angry anymore. I just worked harder, kept my head down, and waited for the moment I could finally breathe on my own. The day I moved to Boulder for college, Mom only walked me to the bus stop. I was 18 with 2 worn duffel bags, a secondhand laptop I'd bought for $300, and a full tuition scholarship that covered exactly that tuition. Everything else, rent, food, books, lab fees, was on me. I started waiting tables at the sink the week before classes, tutored calculus at 7 in the morning, and cleaned office buildings downtown every Saturday night. I learned to sleep on the RTD bus and live on 99-cent tacos when the dining hall closed. Mom called once during orientation week. When I told her I was majoring in data science with a computer science minor, she laughed and put Gary on speaker. He said tech was a guy's world and most girls burned out fast if they wanted kids someday. Mom chimed in that Kendall was already pulling 5-figure brand deals without ever stepping foot on a campus. I said okay and ended the call. After that, conversations stayed under 60 seconds. Sophomore year, I moved into a cheap 4-bedroom off the hill with 3 strangers just to keep rent at $500 a month. I tracked every penny in a spreadsheet because one missed Uber shift meant choosing between groceries and electricity. Mom sent a Christmas card with a $50 bill and a paragraph about Chase's new promotion to regional manager at 24. My name wasn't in the card at all. Junior year, I landed a paid internship at a Denver startup. I took the Flatiron Flyer 2 hours each way, 3 days a week, wrote code on the bus, and still worked weekends. The $18 an hour felt like a fortune. I finally paid off the hospital bill from when I shattered my wrist senior year of high school. No one had thought to add me to the family insurance. Mom somehow heard about the internship and texted, "See, you figured it out without us." I left her on red. Senior year, the recruiters came hard. I wore the same black blazer to every career fair because it was the only one I owned. I shook hands until my palm hurt, talked about the predictive models I built at 2 a.m., and smiled like someone who had never missed a meal. Apex Insights kept calling back. 6 rounds of interviews in one day, then the offer, $108,000 base signing bonus, full benefits, starting the June after graduation. I signed the letter in the airport bathroom because I didn't trust myself not to cry in front of them. Graduation morning was bright and loud. I walked across the stage, took the diploma, snapped a solo selfie in my cap and gown. No one from home made the 2-hour drive. That night, I ate a $10 burrito and started hunting for apartments in Denver. 2 weeks later, while I was packing my last box in Boulder, Mom called out of the blue. She sounded excited in that bright, practiced way and said everyone wanted to take me out to celebrate my real job. She even used air quotes I could hear through the phone. I was sitting on the bare floor surrounded by cardboard, looked at the signed offer letter one more time and said yes. The restaurant sat in the heart of Lodo, the kind of place where one bottle of wine cost more than my weekly grocery budget, and a single dinner for 6 could easily hit $500. Mom had chosen it some sleek new steakhouse with low amber lighting and a sommelier who looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. I walked in wearing the same black blazer I'd worn to every interview since senior year, because it was still the nicest thing I owned. They were already at a large round table near the back wall, Mom in a new silk dress. Gary in his usual crisp shirt with the sleeves rolled just so Chase checking fantasy football on his phone, and Kendall arranging the menu for the perfect flat lay shot. Maya, my ride or die since freshman year, slid into the chair beside me and gave my knee a quick squeeze under the tablecloth. We had barely finished the first round of drinks when Gary set his whiskey down and pushed a glossy silver gift box across the table. It was tied with a thick satin ribbon and looked expensive just sitting there. He flashed that trademark salesman smile and announced loud enough for neighboring tables to hear, "We are all so incredibly proud you finally landed something. Go ahead, open it." Mom was already grinning like she had rehearsed this moment. Chase finally looked up from his phone. Kendall angled her own phone to record. I untied the ribbon slowly and lifted the lid. Inside was a plain white mug with "World's Okayest Employee" printed in cheap block letters and a single gift card to Starbucks for $10. That was it. Gary leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, waiting for the laugh. Mom let out a little chuckle first and added, "We figured you'd probably quit in the first month anyway, so we didn't want to waste money on anything too nice." Chase barked out a laugh. Kendall zoomed in on the mug for her story, giggling behind her phone. The table erupted. Even the waiter hovering nearby cracked a smile. I stared at the mug for a long second while their laughter bounced off the exposed brick walls, another wave of it rolling every time Gary repeated "World's Okayest" under his breath. Maya went very still beside me. Something that had been stretched tight inside my chest for 15 years finally snapped clean. I stood up, smoothed my blazer, and raised my water glass toward the center of the table. My voice came out calm and clear, louder than I expected in the suddenly quiet room. "To the people who never believed in me, thank you. I no longer have to prove you wrong. You could have heard a napkin drop." I reached into my purse, pulled out the folded stack of color printouts I'd carried for weeks just in case, and placed them gently inside the empty gift box. They were screenshots of the family group chat from the night they threw Kendall her private celebration for the $150K influencer deal, every message crystal clear. I closed the lid, retied the ribbon exactly the way it had been, and set the box directly in front of Gary. Then I picked up my clutch, looked at Maya, and we walked out. I heard Mom start to say my name once, soft and uncertain, but no one stood up. No one followed. The valet had my car waiting before we even reached the hostess stand. We pulled away from the curb while the 5 of them sat frozen around that silver box like it might bite them. On the drive home, I finally opened my phone and looked again at the screenshots I had printed and tucked into the gift box. They were from exactly 3 months earlier, a Tuesday night when Gary accidentally added me to the family group chat for 24 hours before he realized and removed me. In that narrow window, I saved every single message. The photos showed the backyard in Aurora lit up with string lights, the long table covered in ribeyes and champagne flutes. Kendall stood in the center holding her framed $150K influencer contract like a trophy while everyone clapped. The texts underneath were casual, almost bored, as if they were discussing the weather. "Mom, our baby just locked in $150K for the year. So proud, Gary. Finally celebrating the kid who actually puts money in the family account. Chase LMAO, remember when we thought we'd be stuck paying for the other one forever." Kendall posted a selfie with the caption, "Cheers to the daughter who doesn't need a bailout." Mom's final message. This is what family dinner should always look like. I sat in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven under the buzzing lights rereading until the words stopped stinging and just felt cold. Maya read over my shoulder in complete silence. After a long minute, she whispered, "They wrote this like it was nothing." And she was right. There was no malice in the tone, no hesitation, just everyday truth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my contacts and started blocking. Mom, Gary, Chase, Kendall, the house landline, Kendall's burner number that autofilled, even though I'd never saved it. Every single one disappeared with a tap. Then I moved to social media: Instagram block, Facebook block, TikTok block, LinkedIn block, Venmo block. Even the ancient Twitter account Chase forgot existed block. I erased every possible doorway, every accidental glimpse of their lives. When it was done, I powered the phone off and threw it onto the back seat like it weighed 50 pounds. Maya asked if I wanted late-night tacos. I shook my head. I just wanted to get back to my tiny Capitol Hill apartment that suddenly felt safer than any house I'd ever lived in. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the living room floor with my laptop and opened Google Photos. I deleted every picture from before Boulder, my forgotten 15th birthday, the family vacations I was never invited on graduation day, where the only person in the stands was Maya. Album by album, I wiped them out, until the only photos left were the ones I took myself of myself, or with Maya. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm brewed coffee in a plain mug I bought at Target for $3 and started my workday with a silence I had never known was possible. No surprise texts, no missed calls, no fake apologies I didn't want, just quiet. From that day on, whenever anyone asked about my family, I answered the same way: I'm an only child. No one ever pushed for more. 7 weeks later, I nearly got evicted from my one-bedroom in Capitol Hill. The company sent a company-wide email on a Tuesday afternoon announcing that all year-end bonuses were canceled due to market correction. The $18,000 I had already mentally spent on breathing room simply vanished. 2 days later, the landlord slid a 3-day pay or quit notice under my door. My checking account had $312 in it. Rent was $1,650. I signed up for Uber before the sun came up the next morning. My first ride was a 4:45 a.m. airport run to DIA. I did 6 more before 9 a.m., showered in the gym at work, and walked into the office like I had slept 8 hours. After logging off at 6, I drove straight to the rooftop bar in Rhino where I had picked up weekend serving shifts. I carried trays of $18 cocktails until 2:30 a.m., then came home, answered Slack messages, and accepted every freelance data cleaning gig Upwork would throw at me. I slept in 2-hour blocks, set alarms for 4:15 a.m., and repeated the cycle. My body ran on cold brew and sheer spite. Still, I made the final student loan payment on the exact due date. I transferred the money from the back seat of my car between rides, watched the balance hit 0, and let myself cry for exactly 30 seconds before the next ping came in. At the office, things moved in the opposite direction. I was put in charge of revenue forecasting for the company's largest client, a regional grocery chain. I rebuilt their entire model from scratch, added weather and social sentiment layers, and brought prediction error down to 0.7%. When Q4 closed, my boss called me into the conference room with the mountain view and slid a printed report across the table. I had delivered 182% of my annual target in 11 months. 2 weeks later, HR sent the official offer: Senior Data Analyst, 18% raise, new title, new desk by the window, effective immediately. I accepted before I finished reading the email. Maya was the only person who knew the full schedule. Some nights she waited outside the bar at last call with a burrito and a hoodie, refusing to let me drive home on fumes. She never lectured, never pitied. She just handed me food and said, "Eat before you crash, dummy." One random Thursday, I opened LinkedIn for the first time in months and saw a message Maya had forwarded from Mom 3 weeks earlier. "We didn't mean to hurt her. Tell Bailey we miss her and we're sorry." I stared at the screen while sitting on my kitchen floor eating cold pizza. I typed one line back to Maya: "Tell her I'm doing great, thanks." Then I closed the app and went back to work. By the end of that stretch, I had paid rent, rebuilt my emergency fund to 4 figures, and bought myself the first new mattress I'd ever owned. Some nights I still woke up at 3:57 a.m. out of habit, but the panic was gone. The silence in my phone was no longer empty. It was mine. 10 months after the restaurant disaster, an internal email froze me mid-sentence during a routine forecasting review. The subject line was short and impossible to misread. 2026 Leadership Conference, closing keynote. My name stood alone. 700 people in the main hall at the Colorado Convention Center, another 12,000 expected on the LinkedIn stream, and leadership wanted me to deliver the final talk of the entire two-day event. The working title they suggested was Turning Doubt into Data. I stared at the screen until my manager nudged me and asked if everything was okay. I managed a nod and closed the laptop. I accepted before the day ended. For the next 8 weeks, I wrote the speech in every spare pocket of time on the train ride home between meetings late at night when the apartment was finally quiet. I kept it clean, professional, and razor sharp. No names, no accusations, just stories about growing up surrounded by people who insisted certain paths weren't meant for someone like me, and how I eventually learned to trust numbers more than opinions. I included 4 brief, carefully anonymized lines from that old family group chat, presenting them simply as messages once sent by people who were supposed to be my safety net. Nothing more. The rest was metrics results, and the quiet satisfaction of letting performance do the talking. 2 weeks before the conference, the events team sent a polite form asking if I'd like to reserve complimentary VIP seats for family or personal guests. I stared at the blank fields for maybe 5 seconds, then requested 4 tickets be couriered to Mom's address through the official service. No message, no note, just the tickets and the standard invitation card that came with every VIP package. The morning of the event, I stood backstage in a new charcoal suit I had bought for the occasion, running through the slides one last time. Maya sat front row center wearing the kind of proud smile that made the whole room feel smaller. The lights dropped, the CEO delivered an introduction I barely registered, and I stepped onto the stage to applause that started polite and quickly grew into something warmer. I spoke for just under 20 minutes. I explained how doubt is nothing more than another variable, how every casual, "you'll never make it" I ever heard became raw material for better models, tighter forecasts, stronger outcomes. When the final slide appeared with the 4 anonymized quotes in plain white text on a black background, the entire hall went completely still. A few people stopped mid-sip of water. Someone in the back shifted in their seat. I never scanned the audience for familiar faces. There was no need. Later, when the hall was almost empty, I finally allowed myself one glance toward the VIP section. 4 seats, 3rd row left. All empty. The programs were still neatly placed on the cushions untouched. I smiled small, and private gathered my laptop and walked out into the Denver sunshine, feeling lighter than I had in years. That night at the Colorado Convention Center, I walked onto the stage under the roar of 700 colleagues. I spoke for 11 minutes. The tone stayed polite, precise, almost gentle, yet every sentence cut clean. I never mentioned a single name. I simply told the story of a girl who grew up being measured against people who were told they mattered more, who learned to let numbers speak when words failed, who turned every quiet dismissal into a data point she could prove wrong. When the final slide appeared with 4 short, unedited lines from an old family group chat, still anonymized, still without context, the entire room went dead silent. You could feel the air leave the hall. Phones lowered. Someone in the front row actually gasped. I thanked them for listening, smiled, and walked off to thunderous applause that felt like it belonged to someone else. Backstage, Maya hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. The CEO shook my hand twice for the cameras. I slipped out a side door before the crowd dispersed. That same night, while still in the car heading home, I posted one LinkedIn story, a simple black screen, with white text that read, "Sometimes the loudest lessons come in silence," followed by a single screenshot of those same 4 quotes. No caption, no tag, no explanation. Within an hour, the post had been screenshotted and shared across industry groups. By morning, it was everywhere. People connected the dots themselves. They always do. 4 months later, the fallout was quiet, surgical, and permanent. Kendall lost 2 mid-tier brand deals worth $45K combined. The bigger sponsors didn't drop her outright. They simply required her to take all public accounts private for 6 months while they reassessed alignment. Her engagement numbers, once her entire currency, plummeted behind the paywall. She went from daily posts to radio silence. Gary became a ghost at the dealership. Colleagues who used to laugh at his jokes suddenly found reasons to be busy. The story had reached the regional managers through the LinkedIn shares. He took early retirement 18 months ahead of schedule, accepting a 19% pension cut because staying felt worse than leaving. Mom Christine, now never. Mom again discovered that the old PTA crowd had a remarkable ability to forget her name. Invitations dried up. Group texts went unanswered. She still lived in the same house in Aurora, but the street felt wider and the neighbors' waves felt shorter. Meanwhile, my inbox filled with offers I never asked for. One fintech unicorn in San Francisco wanted me for $158K plus equity. A Fortune 500 in Seattle countered with $168K and full remote. Then the dream offer landed from a predictive analytics firm in Denver, $182K, base $25K, signing bonus, unlimited PTO, and the title principal data scientist at 26. I signed the same week. I moved into a sun-filled 2-bedroom in Reno with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony that actually overlooked the city I had earned. The first night I sat on the empty living room floor, opened my phone one last time, and deleted Christine's contact for good. The little red delete button felt like the final period on a very long sentence. Christine now is just a contact I deleted. I don't have a mom anymore, and for the first time that feels okay. The people who spent years telling me I was the extra expense finally learned what real expense feels like when the world stops pretending their behavior was private. I didn't have to lift a finger after that night. Truth has a way of traveling faster than any revenge ever could. To anyone reading this who has ever been told they were the other kid, the extra one, the one who should be grateful for scraps your value, was never up for their vote. Keep building. Keep measuring your life in data they can't argue with. One day the numbers will speak so loudly that silence becomes their only answer. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If any part of this story hit close to home, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments, whether it's your own version of the mug moment, the speech you wish you'd given, or the day you finally felt free. Your stories matter just as much as mine.